What up, though? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where six random guys from around the British Isles get together to talk about anything and everything Detroit Lions. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick, and I am joined this evening by my co-host Ryan McCluskey. It's a Wednesday, and you can guess what that means. This is the College Football Podcast. Ryan, how are we doing this week?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm back to fighting fit. First two sessions of my own season. So I'm fully in the football zone now. I'd say I'm fit almost, but that'd be lying.
Oh well, you've got to build up to get there. Yeah, if anyone from the Lions just happened to be watching today, Ryan is getting into shape now. So if you've got a roster spot available for him there, I'm sure he will gladly take that one up. So yeah, this is the first show we've done in a couple of weeks. We had a little break last week to gather our thoughts and go where, wonder where we're going next with the pod. Last time out, we talked about the Senior Bowl. We finished off our bowl prediction games there as well. Since then, the teams for the Senior Bowl have started to be released. So today we're going to go through the offensive side of the Senior Bowl team that's been given to the Lions, and then next week we'll have a little look at the defensive side because that's not quite been revealed just yet. Still think we're waiting on the corners and safeties at this point. We're going to have a little go on that, but first we're going to have a little review of the FBS and the FCS Championship games, both of which took place last week. Now, Ryan's been keeping us very up to date on what's been going on in the FCS playoffs, and the last we heard it got down to the final, North Dakota State versus Montana State. Ryan, I will hand this over to you. How did this match live up to expectations?
Well, it didn't. Unfortunately, it was a damp squib. So on the January 8th, in its location, Frisco, Texas, at the Toyota Stadium, that's held the final now since 2010. As you mentioned, we had the number 2 North Dakota State University Bison against the number 8 plucky outsiders Montana State Bobcats. And this game did not have fireworks. It went very much as I expected, but a little bit more one-sided than I'd hoped for. I thought that the miracle run of Montana State could have tried to put in a bit of a fight there, but unfortunately this was a step too far. So the game was incredibly one-sided. North Dakota State came out on top 38-10. So it was tied their championship highest ever winning margin. So this was a game that was dominated on the ground. So we'll just go through some numbers. Cam Miller, the NDSU quarterback, was only asked to throw 13 times, completed 9 passes for 126 yards and a touchdown. But the 5 heaviest touches of the ball, running backs Johnson, Patterson, halfback Luke, other running back Williams, and the quarterback Miller touched the ball 50 times for 385 yards on the ground, averaging just over 7 yards a carry, and totaled for 4 touchdowns on the ground. They absolutely dominated. Montana State have got a stud linebacker, Trey Anderson, tackles galore, but they controlled the line of scrimmage all day long. It's a great NDSU offensive line. I'm going to talk about one of them later that's at the Senior Bowl. It's basically a pro line that they've had there for many years. They won the battle in the trenches. They firmly controlled time of possession and yards gained. Their sole actual receiver, who's also someone who's on the NFL radar, Christian Watson, only needed to get 4 catches for 61 yards. So they did all their dirty work on the ground. They also got an interception. They couldn't have done anything more. They dominated every aspect of the game. They forced multiple punts. But unfortunately, the Montana State sideline, just on the first drive, Tommy Mellett, the backup quarterback, was hurt after attempting only, I believe, 6 passes, and his game was over. So they turned around to it's Timothy Rovig, their 3rd string quarterback, who was called up to come into the game very early on. And he put up a respectable performance where he could. The offensive line gave him very little room to work. He was harassed all day, only completed 13 of his 28 passes for 156 yards for a touchdown and an interception. They did get a bit of chunk on the ground. Isaiah Ifanse, 18 touches for 84 yards at a respectable 4.7 yards a carry. and Lance McCutcheon had the sole receiving touchdown in the game, and he also had 106 of the 156 receiving yards just off 5 catches. So 21.2 yards of reception for him. So he did his best to help his quarterback out as he could, though. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to get anything going on the offense. They weren't able to hold up their defensive front. The running backs and quarterbacks just gashed them on the day. Linebackers and safeties were incredibly busy. Everything was getting to the second and third level, and they just run out of steam in the end. So their fairy tale year as entering the playoffs as the number 8 seed after their quarterback decided to went to the portal before the first game, and then coming through the likes of Sam Houston State, they just met the big boys in the end. Unfortunately, it was just a task too far, and NDSU are just incredibly clinical. There's just some notes on the day here that that's 9 titles in 11 years for NDSU. They are the New England Patriots of FCS football. They are 9-0 in championship finals. They have never lost. They earn so much money, though, that they do not take the step up to the FBS level. They will stay at the FCS level because they keep winning. They are a dominant actual force. As I mentioned, going back to their 2013 championship, this is their tied for their largest title win. It was a margin of 28 points. And so it was pretty domination. It wasn't great to see as a neutral. I would like to see Montana State been able to establish some sort of ground game, but the moment their starting quarterback went down, I felt like it was curtains for them. Like they were really on the back foot then, and the pressure was just intensified. And in the season-ending FCS poll, NDSU, of course, finished number 1. Montana State, what a brilliant year, coming in at number 2. JMU, the Dukes, finished at 3. Sam Houston, who were the favourites most of the year, finished the season in 4. The Bearcats, 5. You got the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, and closing out the bitter rivals, the Montana State Grizz, who finished at 6. That's how the FCS season panned out this year. So it was just like history repeating itself. The Bison just keep getting it done. Cam Miller, Trey Lance, Carson Wentz, they just keep spitting out NFL caliber players. Got Christian Watson, Henry Lupke, got an offensive lineman, there's defenders there. They are just a machine, a breeding ground for stars at that level. And I don't know who's going to stop them. Who is going to be the first team that ever beats them in a championship game, because they're almost at double digits. So it was a shame to see it not be one-sided, but I can't say I didn't expect this.
And, maybe they're finding a different way to do this as well. I mean, Ash is in the chat and he goes, isn't not passing much symptomatic of the NDSU offense? He says he swears that Lance and Wentz both had it as a negative against them, that they didn't really pass as much when they were there. Would you say that they have adapted a little bit and they are using the quarterback a lot more now?
Yeah, what they found in Cam Miller quarterback is they found a dual threat as well. Trey Lance, Carson Wentz was never that guy, but Cam Miller, he's not the biggest, but he's got a nice arm, protects the ball well. And Christian Watson, unfortunately, is like leaving for the draft now, but he's had such a dependable target. They've got Babix, a big tight end. North Dakota State football relies on tight ends. Babix, Noah Gindorf. These are guys to watch in the next draft next year. They run heavily. They are bookends that sit on the end of an FBS quality offensive line. The linemen they managed to recruit there, it's just a bit unfair, really. Like, we're going to talk about a guy, these guys like 6'5", 6'6". They look like they could go into the NFL, and they do get a lot of bodies there. They run behind some serious firepower there. And there's a reason why some teams just can't touch them, can't get close to them. They've got a young head coach. I believe he's only like 38, 39. So they're not slowing down anytime soon. I expect over the next 5-10 years that you could see 12, 13 titles easily. They're not going away. And who knows when they will make the jump up and get bored and step up to the FBS, which James Madison are doing this year. They will not be in the FBS next year because they've decided that, I believe they're joining the Sun Belt. So it's going to be really interesting to see if they can make the step up with the likes of Liberty, App State have done it in recent years. So there's a growing trend now of teams outgrowing the FCS, but the Bison aren't ready yet. They're going to spoil people's parties for just a little bit longer. So sorry, kids.
Indeed. Well, thanks for keeping us so up to date there on the FCS. Obviously, we don't really do much outside of the playoffs there, but hopefully, it's giving people a lot more of an oversight about what is going on down there at the minute. And like you say, one dynasty is ruling in charge down there. But unlike in the FBS, unfortunately, the same couldn't be said for their ruling dynasty of sorts. So in the FBS Championship game, we had Alabama, Nick Saban, the dynasty, he just keeps producing such wonderful teams coming up against SEC rivals, Georgia, whom they thoroughly dismantled a few weeks before this performance. And, you were wondering, they've got the Heisman winner, Bryce Young. Are they going to be able to do it again? Well, as it turns out, the answer is no. This was a very close game, but Georgia were able to banish the ghost of Christmas past, and Stetson Bennett now holds a natty. Who would have been saying that at the start of this season? But I mean, this Georgia team has been absolutely unreal. This game ended 33 points to 18. Georgia's feared defense, which didn't really show up in the first episode of the rivalry between these two this season, they came to play. On Georgia's side of the ball, Stetson Bennett, he went 17 for 26, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zamir White in the rushing game, he went 13 for 84 and a touchdown. Young Cook, James Cook, we're going to be hearing about him in a bit. He carried 6 times for 77 yards at an average of about 13 yards per carry. And then in the receiving game, all the big guys came to play. George Pickens, well, he only got 1 reception, but it was for 52 yards, pretty big one. Brock Bowers, who we're going to be hearing so much about in years to come, the absolutely freakish tight end whose ceiling is unlimited. He got 4 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown there as well. And the defense, well, as like I say, they came to play. 2 picks, 4 sacks on Bryce Young, who they managed to keep quiet. Probably the first time this season he really has been kept quiet. He went 35 for 57. They really, really leaned on him in this one. He got 369 yards, a touchdown through 2 picks. Brian Robinson Jr., the running back, only got 68 yards on 22 carries at 3 yards per carry. That Georgia D-line really stopped him from doing really anything of note in this game. In the receiving game, Cameron Latu, he got 5 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown. A good day for him. Jameson Williams, 4 receptions, 65 yards, but a game that was overshadowed by a very nasty injury to him. Just as draft season is about to come up, he was heading up to the top of the board, wide receiver 1. Possibly some people were saying it remains to be seen what this injury does to his stock, but that was an absolute, hammer blow for him. And hopefully he can come back fighting fit and get himself, a good home in the draft and get his career back on track. In terms of the defense, Dallas Turner, he got 2 sacks on the day, but not really a great deal else going there. Oh, sorry, no, Christian Harris, he also paired up my linebacker, my favorite linebacker there on the Alabama Crimson Tide. He got 3 sacks on the day, as well as 7 tackles. His draft stock has gone up massively on the back of this game. And, he'd probably be cusping up there somewhere on the second round as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. But I mean, this was a really close game for the first 3 quarters. I think it was only about like 13-9 going into the 4th quarter to Georgia. But then in the 4th quarter, the offense came alive of Georgia, and Alabama just could not get going in this one.
No, I hate to say it, but I think even he asked him himself, this is Bryce Young's worst ever game. The interceptions, they were really poor. He threw into double covered guys. He was forcing passing to windows at that. If you look at the interceptions, they were very ill-advised throws. They had desperation written all over them. As you mentioned, the first half of this game, it was all defense. It was field goal after field goal because in the red zone, each team just struggled. They kept breaking down whenever they got to like the 20, 30-yard line. Lots of penalties. They were moving back. They were forced to keep opposite and kicking. And it was a good day for the kickers. It really came alive in the 3rd, 4th quarter. It was one of those odd games because everyone felt so out of rhythm. Like if you told Stetson Bennett he'd be in a championship game at this point at start season, he probably would have laughed. He's forced JT Daniels to transfer because he now feels like he now needs to go somewhere else. He's now not got a home. He was the prospective starter at the start of the year, but this, I believe at some point, I think he was a walk-on. So he's gone through a really great story, Stetson Bennett. Like, he has come through, he's had a hard career. He's struggled and fought his way to get here. He's fought off guys, and he really deserves it. He looked really composed on the day. He took his shots when he had to. There was some lovely deep balls there on the odd blown coverage, but the defenses really showed up. Linebackers, N'Kobe Dean, everywhere, flying around, making tackles. As you mentioned, the likes of Cameron Harris, who was just like a beast. He was pitched a tent in that backfield. He was really important on the day. Cameron Latu, I was very impressed by that young man. I'm told he's going to return to for this 2022 year. Even though it's not the deepest class, but he showed good hands. He's got nice speed, nice size. He was probably the better tight end on the day. That Brock Bowers was bottled up. He's someone that had an absolute field day in the SEC Championship. He was unable to be stopped, but he wasn't releasing off the line very well. They double teamed him. They tried to take him away, but losing Jameson Williams, like when he went down holding the knee, you just knew it was bad, didn't you? You knew the day was over. It looked really sad for him, and the game unfortunately just got away from them. The interceptions, and then you mentioned the deep strike to Pickens, 50 yards, absolutely beautiful throw and catch. It just caught them so cold. They had a rough day on the back end. Jordan Battle struggled. I think he got called for a roughing on a really big play. I think he hit Bennett and he extended a drive, which led to points. They really struggled on the back end. But on the other side, Lewis Seen, he's flying up draft boards, really. He had a really nice day, nice game. So I did not see this coming at all. I expected it to pan out a bit like the SEC Championship again, but the occasion just seemed too big for Bryce Young. You could tell it's frustrated because you saw the press conference at the end of the day where both players wanted to leave and just get out and go clear ahead. But Saban grabbed him by the arm, said, no, you'll sit down, you'll finish this like men. And I really liked that about him. Like, he took that with dignity and he took it with a lot of pride, and he sat there and finished. And he made his young men finish too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that's just going to give them such a boost, I guess, coming back into next year. Because, I mean, they're really going to have a point to prove now, especially the way they so thoroughly dismantled Georgia not so long ago. They knew they could win that game, but I think maybe just a little bit of pressure on the day came up. And I think that's maybe how we thought the first game was going to go. Georgia's D-line came up, and it's the best in the country, probably by a long shot. And once you stop that run game and you put pressure on Bryce Young to throw it all the time, let's say 55 odd throws on the day, then you're going to cause mistakes out of him when it's just the age-old adage. If you can't run the ball, then you're going to have big problems. And unfortunately, that turned out today. But I mean, fair play to Georgia. I think that's their first title win in a little while. And I suppose it is good to see Saban not win it again for the God knows how many time. But it's going to be interesting to see how they come back next year now. But, probably with a load of 5-star recruits and just train wreck everyone again. But hey ho. So yeah, that was it for the end of the college football season. The championships are in the bag. Everything is done and dusted now. So, the attention really for us is going to switch to the draft now, and that is pretty much where we're going to stay. And obviously the first stop on that, we talked about it last episode, is Senior Bowl. The Detroit Lions are going to be coaching there along with the New York Jets, and we sort of had a little look at the roster, a very a very brief overview of the roster there and some of our favorite players. But since then, as I say, the teams have started to be drawn for the players that we're going to get to work with all week. So we can start taking a little bit more of an in-depth look now at some of those players. So this week, like I say, we're going to have a look at the offense, which players we've been given. And then next week, we'll look at the defense when the full lineups have been released. But I mean, there's some good players that we've got coming up here, a few that we've missed out on, but there's going to be plenty of good prospects for us to feast on. So let's dive straight into it. We'll go in for the quarterbacks, and we've been given a very interesting class of quarterbacks for this. So the three guys we have been given Malik Willis, Sam Howell, and Bailey Zappi. I keep wanting to say Zappy. So yeah, just to dive down into their college careers and seasons, and then we'll discuss them a little bit. So Malik Willis, he's a 4-year college guy. He spent 2 years at Auburn before transferring to the Liberty Flames for his final 2 years, where he became starter. He is the dual threat guy out of these. And, when I say he's a dual threat, he really is a dual threat, although there is a lot of refinement in his game. He's 6'1", 215 pounds. In his college career, he's thrown 388 successful passes from 618 attempts. That's a 62.8% completion rateage, 5,176 yards, 48 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. And on the ground, he's carried 366 times, 2,131 yards and 29 touchdowns. It's a hell of a presence on the ground there. However, when you look at his 2021 stats, it does start to reveal a few concerning issues when it comes to him. So in 2021, he went 207 of 339, which was only 61.1% completion rateage, 2,857 yards, 27 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, bearing in mind he's only ever thrown 18, two-thirds of those have come this year. He had a quarterback rating of 151, 197 carries, 878 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Now, some things to bear in mind with Malik Willis. His 2 biggest games this year came against Ole Miss and the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. His touchdown to interception ratio in those games was 2-5. He really, really struggled in both those games where he had an opportunity to shine. And he also threw 3 picked games against Middle Tennessee and Louisiana Monroe, not 2 of the biggest teams in the world, and he struggled in those games. Now, I mean, there's a lot to like about Malik Willis. Obviously, the dual threat is there, the ability is there, but he needs a hell of a lot of fine tuning before he's going to be anywhere near ready to go to the NFL. Would that something you'd agree with?
Oh yeah, he needs a lot of work. From what I've seen this year, he really struggles to diagnose defenses. They catch him out too easily. He throws those cheap interceptions. I worry about the arm. I don't think the arm is strong enough. That's what I really need to see from him. I know he's great throwing the ball on the run, which we see in a lot of quarterbacks like Kyler Murray. But when he's in the pocket, his ability to move it downfield, that is where the questions are. Like say his accuracy from the pocket when he's sat behind a line that's going to give him protection, or if he's in his face. There are some very errant throws, but on design plays and especially when stuff breaks down and he decides to tuck it and run, the runs are ridiculous. He is so graceful. He's got fantastic balance. He's able to cut on a dime. As you mentioned, he's almost taken as many rushing touches as he has got completions in college. So he is a very 50-50 how he's been used across his term at Liberty and Auburn. So I expect that will be how he wants to try and be at the next level. He'll want to try be as a factor in the running game, but he needs to learn as well. He's got to learn how to protect himself more, because he will get hit way harder in the NFL. He will have to slide. He will have to know when to give up on a run, not fight for extra yardage. I don't want to see the Cam Newton heroics where he ends up getting hurt. I'm willing for him to cut runs short, don't be the hero, and just work on protecting the ball as well. This year, especially, the interception numbers, they were too high. There was some erratic play there, but there were games where he looked really good and protected the ball. When you ask him to throw less, he makes less mistakes. That seems to be the common trend with him.
Yeah. It's a really polarizing one at the minute, especially, they're going to get a look at him all week. But I think, like you say, ball security has got to be a big thing for him to prove there. His decision making in the pocket, he leaves far too early, far too many times. He loves to run. There are issues that he's going to have to look at there, but we'll see how he does. A few Lions fans still do like him, but I don't know. It's an indecisive one, let's say. Moving on, we've got Sam Howell. Now, he is the 3-year starter from the University of North Carolina, and at the start of this season was a very presumptive number 2 draft pick. But unfortunately for him, he didn't have a very good start to the season. But just going through what he's done it in college. So, like I say, he's been a 3-year starter. He's completed 713 of 1,117 passes at 63.8% completion percentage. He's got 10,283 passing yards, 92 touchdowns, which I believe is a record for UNC, and 23 interceptions. He had a quarterback rating of 164.2. He's also carried the ball 369 times for 1,009 yards and 17 rushing touchdowns. And he actually also has 2 receiving touchdowns. In terms of his 2021, he went 217 of 347, 62.5% completion rating, 3,056 yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He got 183 carries on the ground for 828 yards and 11 touchdowns. Now, I think out of these 3, this is the one, Sam is the one I'm most excited about. I've said it, if we were to pick him, then I wouldn't have any issues with it, even sort of regarding, position and whether we need a quarterback that early or not. But I mean, for me, Sam Howell's got a lot of what you need to be in the NFL. I mean, he's the toughest one of these by some margin. I mean, the guy is Matthew Stafford tough. The amount of hits he's taken behind a very leaky offensive line in Carolina this year, and to still get back up and keep on chugging away and doing what he's done is something. But unfortunately, he's just been tainted by that first game. They went away to Virginia Tech. He threw 3 picks. He didn't look good. But this is a game when he'd lost his 4 biggest weapons on offense. He was behind a line that wasn't protecting him, and he was in a hostile environment in that thing. I don't think many quarterbacks would have flourished in that situation. But I mean, this year he's rushed for more yards than he's ever done. He's adapted his game. He's not had the same weapons to throw at, so he's used his feet a bit more. He looks good in the pocket. He's got a good arm on him. I'm genuinely excited that they're going to get to work with him for a week, and I think Dan Campbell's going to love him. I don't know, but what about you?
For me, he is the safest quarterback in the draft. I think what you see is what you get. He has almost identical rushing numbers to Malik Willis, but he's not asked to rush the ball. Like, these aren't because these were designed plays. These, because as you mentioned, he's all on his ass. In that first loss in the year, he was sacked like 7 times. He was not given any room to work in the pocket. These were runs where he basically had to flee for his life and scramble, and then still managed to come up with the goods. And toughness, he's got it in spades, probably more than other guys in the draft. Game against Pittsburgh this year, he got battered. He was getting hit left, right, and centre. I've seen 3 games this year where he's left with injuries, and within a few plays or a drive, he's come right back and he's looked just fine. He's come into the red zone, tossed a dart, lost a lot of weapons, but had a fantastic relationship with Josh Downs. Like, those two were just on a wavelength this year. He knew where he was. He's got one of the best arms as well. Like, he has got a bomb. I saw him throw 60, 65 yards air passes this year, and he didn't even break a sweat. Like, the kid is just great. Not the biggest, like you say, but he's got that 6'1" build, but he's stocky. He's got the meaty build on him, so he can certainly hold his own in the pocket. And what he's been able to do on a team that has been really depleted, Matt Brown, UNC, they've been bad this year. They've had a really bad year, but it's not because of him. It's because of the defense. That defense this year, they've had Kimmel on that and injuries. They've had no difference maker, and they've struggled to stay on the field. He's been on the field way too long. He's been in some shootouts. Like I say, he's had a stuttering run game to help him from likes of Ty Chandler. Some weeks he's had nothing on the ground and had to do everything himself. So he's been a one-man team all year. So you can say he's the only reason that they managed to get the amount of wins they did. And I really applaud him for that. I've got a horrible feeling that we're not going to get a sniff of him in the draft. I think he'll be taken way after and way before we're picking in the first round. But someone's going to get a really good guy in this. Like I said, if he slips to a second, it's going to be an absolute steal, because I genuinely think give him a few months, it could be a starter, because he's safe. The floor is very high and the ceiling is reasonably good. And in the NFL, that can get you a long way, like a Tannehill.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really worried that he shows a lot of Steeler-like qualities. I guess, again, when it comes to his toughness, standing in the pocket, his arm strength, I think they're really going to be sniffing around him if they're not after Kenny Pickett. But I'm with you. If he's there in the second, then pull the trigger. he's just got everything you want as a quarterback, and he's going to make a really good starter for someone, I believe, going forward. And like I said, if you're watching him at the Senior Bowl, just don't go off the chatter about the first game of the season and that he had so many problems to work with at UNC. The run game didn't get going till like week 6 or 7. He lost all his weapons. His O-line was rubbish, and he still led them to quite a few wins. That's a positive for him. Anyhow, moving on to the last guy. So the wild card out of all these guys, we've got Bailey Zappa. He is he's spent 5 years in college. He spent 4 years with Houston Baptist in the FCS, I believe. And then he made the move this year to Western Kentucky. And my, oh my, what a decision that was from him. Again, 6'1", 220 pounds. All our quarterbacks, weirdly enough, are 6'1" and are within 5 pounds of how much they weigh of one another. So that's a little bit of an odd thing there. I don't know whether we got a type or not, but this is the air raid guy. So, this guy, he flourishes in an air raid offense, and he throws the ball so much. I mean, these stats alone. So his career in college, 1,225 completions from 1,897 throws. That's 64.1% completion. 14,433 passing yards, 135 touchdowns thrown, 40 interceptions, a QB rating of 147. He's got 241 carries for 210 yards. He isn't a rusher, but he's got 4 rushing touchdowns. But his 2021, I mean, that's just been something special. He went 475 of 686. That's a 69.2% completion rating. 5,967 yards, 62 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a quarterback rating just under 170, 51 carries for 17 yards and 3 touchdowns. He broke every single record in the book this year. For passing yards, he broke Burrow's record. I think Burrow's was the touchdown record as well. I mean, Jesus, this guy's had one hell of a year.
Yeah, he's had a phenomenal year. There's only 2 quarterbacks in history that have come anywhere close to 6,000 yards. There was some guy at Oregon State in like 2013. I don't remember his name, but no one has come close to 6,000 yards, just 2 of them. So statistically, it's the greatest year ever from a quarterback. Now, the 2 words that worry you are air raid, because that does not translate to the NFL. He will never be asked to throw this many passes. Now, if he's able to condense this talent into a small sample size, this kid could be the next Tom Brady. This guy could go in the 4th, 5th round and win you a Super Bowl if you can condense it and not be asked to do too much. We saw with Gardner Minshew flash in the pan, like that air raid style that can make this kid, if you will just watch him this year playing with his fantastic receiver, Steref, he can make every throw in the book. He can throw across his body 50 yards. He can throw it deep, 60, 70 yards, trick plays. The rushing is something you don't see. I would not consider this kid a dual threat. He is a pocket passer. Like say, he has got that primary. He will step up into the pocket. He will deliver a quick strike. He's got a reasonably fast release. Sometimes does wait too long for things to develop. That can lead to sacks. But he can work on it. He's got the throwing arm, he's got the motion. He's got the smaller build, even though he's a bit heavy. He's got the smaller build of the 3 guys. I'm not sure how tough he is. Like, I don't feel like this kid gets hit too often. With all them completions, he works in a very clean pocket. So I'd like to see what he does, like, say, if he's able to escape some of the elite pass rushers. But it's impossible to tell where someone's going to take a chance on this guy. This guy could go round 3. This kid could go round 6. You never know. You don't know how these figures, these stats translate the next level, but I'm glad they picked the guy because there's an awful lot there to work with. Incredibly likable. Someone else that took that step up and found just the right school for him, the right timing, the right scheme to work in. And who knows, it could be a great long-term career backup. Maybe that's his ceiling. Maybe he's a lower range starter. You never know, but someone's going to draft him. Like someone is going to see and be watching this ball carefully because it's 4 quarters, but you'll see all 3 of the quarterbacks. They will all play good, extensive playing time. And the game doesn't matter. The game is like the Pro Bowl. You're not even allowed to touch anyone because they're scared of them getting hurt. There's no blitzing or anything. But what you see in the drills beforehand, you can watch the practices and that live on TV. You'll get a good feel. And I can't believe I think we're getting the best look at three guys that could suit the Lions going forward. Like, these are really good options. So I like all three of them because they all bring something totally different to the table.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there. I do love that, we've got the dual threat guy, we've got the tough pocket guy, and we've got the air raid guy in there as well. So we're going to have a lot to work with. And, you read Zappa's stats out and you think, God, how can this guy not be drafted? But, like, as you've mentioned with the air raid stuff, there's a lot you've got to prove and that you can't prove. It's the same with any position, be it a receiver who's given limited routes to run, that affects him at the draft. He'll look great at his team, but, you have to show a more all-round game. So it's going to be interesting to see where he's at. Just, we touched there about his, his projection in the draft. We've been asked on Twitter by Court. He goes, assuming the three quarterbacks on our side are the ones we've got any interest in, do you want any of those where they're commonly projected? So, say a late first, early second for either Howell or Willis, or Zappa with maybe the comp pick in 3 or the 4th. I know we've already said it about Howell, but would you be comfortable giving up the picks for all three of these guys, or is there just one you'd zero in on specifically?
I take them all, but I won't take none of them are in the first. I don't think any. I am not sold still on other than maybe Corral or maybe Pick at the end. None of these guys should go in the first. I've got a feeling someone will reach for Malik Willis because he's got that exciting raw potential at the end of the first. But Pickett is a safe second rounder with Carson, Strong, Ridder. I think they're your strong second round guys. And I think they've probably got the most value. I'm not looking at, until I see the kid work out and NFL coaches, I'll probably give up a 4th rounder for Bailey Zappa. I think that'd be fair. If he doesn't pan out, so what, a 4th rounder? If he's a 10-year backup that steps in and wins the odd game or is able to come in and relief, well, that's great value.
Yeah, I think I'd definitely give up the projected pick for Howell. I'm quite happy with that one now. Willis, no, I'd rather he slide, but he ain't going to slide to the 3rd. But if he did, then I'd be well up for it. Zappi, again, I'm not entirely sure. I just think, development's not where we need to go at the minute, and I think we could go elsewhere. So probably Howell would be the only one I would give up for. So just to round out the quarterbacks, the Jets received Desmond Ridder, Carson Strong, which was a shame, and Kenny Pickett. They've got a strong group there as well. And Ash has asked us on Twitter during this, we can swap one player in each position group from our squad to the Jets for one of theirs. Who's going and who are we getting? So if you could theoretically trade one of the quarterbacks for another one, who would it be?
I wouldn't. This is one position I wouldn't swap. I know what you get with Kenny Pickett. He can make all the throws, great pocket passer, but he's got baby hands, which I don't like. Carson Strong I know he's had an MRI, but he has had the knee injury. He's not mobile. He runs like the Tin Man in the pocket, even though he's got a strong arm. And Ridder, I'm just not sold on Ridder. Like, I think we've got a much better group. They've got 3 very similar guys. There's not much diversity there, so I won't take any of them.
Yeah, see, I really like Strong and I really like Ridder, but I don't think I'd trade just because of the versatility in terms of the guys we've got there. I do think we've got a nice variety to watch. I think Ridder and Strong would be too similar maybe in some ways, and maybe they sort of interject with Howell as well. So yeah, I'm not going to trade either for that one, but that may change. We'll see. So quarterbacks are done. We'll move on to the running backs now. And, I kind of like this group of running backs that we've been given. So we're going to start off, and we've mentioned him already. We're going to start with the younger brother of one Vikings running back, Dalvin Cook, and that is James. He is a 4-year player from Georgia. He's 5'11", 190 pounds, and he is your prototypical 3-down back. So over his career, he's carried 230 times for 1,503 yards, an average of 6.5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns. He's fumbled twice, and he's got 67 receptions for 730 yards and 6 touchdowns. In terms of his 2021, well, he's won himself a natty this year, which is a big start to that. He's carried 113 times for 728 yards. Again, 6.5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. He's got 27 receptions, 284 yards, and 4 touchdowns. The vast majority, actually, of which came against Michigan in the semifinals. But I mean, there's a lot to like about James Cook. He's not had the most usage in college, which means there's not a lot of tread on there, which means there's a lot of him left to come up to the NFL. And this year, he's shown that he can be, a force in the passing game, which if you're going to be a 3-down back in the NFL, you've got to really be able to, be a receiver in there as well. I'm quite excited to get a look at this guy. Obviously, we know what his brother can do because he's mauled us enough times for the Vikings. I don't know, what do you think about Cook?
I think Cook's very similar to, another Georgia back. He's a bigger DeAndre Swift. Like, he's very good in the passing game. Once you get him into the open space, he has got the home run speed. We saw that sometimes the other day when he hit the hole and he made a tackle miss. Like, bringing him down is not easy. He's not easy to keep up with, but he's got those extra 2 inches. He's got the extra pounds on him, which means he's able to run through the tackles as well, which Swift is what struggles with. But James Cook he's a bit beefier, so he's a bit better. He can run the powers, he can run the ISOs, things like that. So he can be used in a more traditional scheme as a dual threat. And I like the kid. As you mentioned, with Swift, with Zamir White, it's been very crowded in Georgia for a few years now. He's not actually been able to see the field all that much. So you've got a relatively small sample size to work off of, but he's also had no real injuries. He's also had no real miles on the clock, so he's not had much wear and tear. I think he's one of the more premier guys in the groups we're working with. He's probably maybe the name to watch because he's got, as you mentioned, he's got great hands. He gobbles everything up that comes out the backfield. Only 2 fumbles. Was that this season or all time?
No, that's all time. This was all time. He's not had any this season.
That's great, like you say. So he can be trusted to touch the ball because, as you mentioned, 300-400 touches, just 2 tumbles. So he's someone that can be trusted to pound the rock when needs be. I think he's a good project. He's someone that could make a nice change of pace back in the NFL. So I think it's certainly someone to watch.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to have a Cook not running the hell out of us for a change. His brother has done that so many times, and I hate him for it. So yeah, James Cook, he's the first guy on our radar. Next, a name that we've mentioned maybe a little bit on here, but he comes from another good running team. So that's Damian Pierce. He is a 4-year guy from the Florida Gators. Ash won't like him because obviously rivals there. He's 5'10", 215 pounds, and this guy's he's like the slippery guy of this group. He's so hard to bring down when he gets going, and it really takes a lot to keep him in check. And again, he's another one who's not got the most mileage on him through his college career, which will bode well. So in his career overall, he's carried 329 times for 1,806 yards at 5.5 yards per carry. He's got 23 touchdowns, again, got 2 fumbles, 45 receptions out the backfield, 422 yards and 5 touchdowns. His 2021 was pretty decent. He had 100 carries exactly, 574 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. And in the receiving game, he got 19 receptions, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, it doesn't sound like much on the grand scheme of things, but at Florida, they run a big committee of running backs there. Emory Jones, their quarterback, was the leading rusher for them this season. He got even more yards than Pierce did. And then you've got, I think it's Naquan Knight who's there, and the other guy, Davis, I can't remember his name. They've both got about 500 yards apiece. But this is another intriguing proposition. He comes from a good running back by committee group, but he can do a little bit of everything and potentially could be a good fit for us as well.
Yeah, this guy's better runner than he is. He's a better rusher than he is receiver. As you mentioned, once you get between 5'10" and lower, that means usually they've got thicker thighs, they've got a big square base, and they've got that lower center of gravity, which can mean it's harder to tackle them. Like, they're able to break tackles a little bit easier once they're a bit shorter. Stocky, it's still 215, so He's a compact back, but he's got that explosion. He's got good numbers, like I say, averaging still 5.5 yards a carry. He's had a slow year. Florida's had a bad year. We don't need to sugarcoat that. They've had a lot of mouths to feed. They've had a lot of rotation. So he's had to share snaps with a lot of guys this year. So the numbers probably aren't a true reflection. If you get rid of all the other guys, he'd have easily had a 1,000-yard season. I think that's easy to say. If you get one of the other two guys, he takes the lion's share of the carries. He can be very much trusted. Barely put the ball on the ground as well, with more rushing touches, more contact. He's taken like another 100 rushes that Cook's never taken. So he's had a bit more mileage, but comes out of one of those programs where it's a multi-back scheme. So I think he's someone that's probably more in the Jamal Williams kind of build. He's going to be more between the tackles, running, trying to get the first down. Like I say, I think he's certainly a name to watch in the later rounds, but I think he could be a nice pickup for someone as a running back kind of too.
Yeah, I'd agree there. So moving on, we've had the 3 down back, we've had the slippery sort of get your gritty yards back. Now we've got the aggressive every down back, and we've mentioned him again as well. He comes from Alabama. He's been there 5 years. His name is Brian Robinson Jr. He is 6'1", 228 pounds. He is a big guy. Over his career there, only really took off this year, but he had 544 carries, 2,697 yards, 5 yards a carry, 29 touchdowns, 3 fumbles, 53 receptions, 446 yards, and 2 touchdowns. However, his 2021, he has garnered a lot of that production there because he's been sharing the load in years before. This year, he went 270 carries, 1,336 yards, 5 yards per carry, 14 touchdowns, just the 1 fumble. And he also had 36 receptions for 296 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, again, 5 yards per carry, not the most receptions in the world, doesn't sound the best in the world, but I mean, this guy really helped the Alabama offense churn out those yards. He gained the nitty-gritty hard yards. He was out there most plays and allowed Bryce Young into some manageable situations to be able to do his thing. I mean, what are your thoughts on Robinson?
See, in the NFL, big backs like him worry me because they take a lot of wear and tear. They don't shy away. When you look at him, he's a bit smaller than Derrick Henry. He runs a bit upright, like say which Derrick Henry does, and that's the one that always worries you. So the stance isn't always the best. He gets stood up easily. We saw that he really struggled running between the tackles against Georgia. He was losing leverage and getting stood up easy at the line of scrimmage. But as you mentioned, he grinds it out. Like say on 3rd and 4th down, if you're on 3rd and long, 4th and short, he's very dependable in them because he's got the weight behind him, he's got the size, he's able to be that hammer at line of scrimmage when needs be. And what was it, like 34 touchdowns? Like say, he's great in the red zone as well. Once he gets the momentum building up, and if you give him a few 3-4 yards or 5-6 yards on his defensive back, he is going to mow you down. He is going to hurt. He is a big, stocky guy. He's someone that a team like the Bills really need, that have that struggle with a running game. Like, he would be someone great there. Like, this guy may pick up injuries at the next level. He doesn't shy away from contact, but I think he can put up some serious numbers if he's given those heavier workloads. I won't put him in the passing game much, even though he's shown that he can get the odd yards, but he's not a receiver. He wants to do one cut. He wants to hit in a straight line, head for the pylon, or he wants to run down the middle and he wants to run over a safety or a linebacker. But I love that about him. He is a brute. Like I say, gauging where he's going to go, though, is not easy because, like I say, a lot of his work has been done in 1 year and he's been just sharing all the way through. But I think he's going to be someone that they really like. It'll all be about how he works out, what's his 40 time, and how quickly does he get around the cones. If he does poorly in those drills, he will sink like a stone.
Yeah, but I think, if he does well, and especially, the aggressive nature of him, I think he's someone who Dan Campbell might get to know and pretty quickly.
We need a big back like that, I think. I'd love it.
We do. And, the great thing about this running back class we've got is we've got the well-known sort of aggressive, big running back. And then we've also got the wild card, lesser known bulldozing running back, and this guy is a real sort of wild card proposition for us. And I've been watching him a little bit today, and I'm really, really intrigued. So the last running back we have, his name's Devontae Price, and he is a 5-year guy from Florida International. Now, he is not probably the most well-known guy in the world, but Florida International, not the best team at the moment, and they play in the CUSA. But this guy, he is a bulldozer. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. And if you need some hard yardage, this is the guy to go to. In his career, he's carried 369 times, 2,203 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. He's got 16 touchdowns. Does have 5 fumbles. 2 of them were recovered, and there was only 1 this year. So ball security issues that have been getting better. He's got 45 receptions for 307 yards and a touchdown. Not really a receiving back. In 2021, he's had a decent year. 129 carries, 682 yards, about 5.5 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns. Did have 2 fumbles, but they were in the same game. Apart from that, his record was clean. Just had 10 receptions for 83 yards. Now, just to kind of put into perspective the job he's done down there, he's been very much under the radar, but he is coming to prominence now. Florida International have never had a running back drafted before. Never. They've never produced an NFL draft running back, and he's well in the equation for this one. In fact, they've only ever had 10 players which have been drafted. So this is not a team that is known for producing NFL draft quality players. They play in the CUSA, which is very out the way and not known for its NFL caliber running backs. But despite all that, this guy has come through and really made a name for himself. And they say, this guy runs hard. He's not a receiving back, but if you want a guy who's going to bulldoze through in 3rd and short, or he's going to get you some nitty gritty yardage on 1st down, this guy is potentially going to be an absolutely perfect fit for the right team. And again, I think he's another guy who Dan Campbell is really going to like. But I like that we've been given a wild card like this. We don't know what to expect, but potentially we could be onto a really good guy here who's not going to go till later in the draft when expending a pick on a running back might be more acceptable.
Yeah, the Lions in their plans this year, they don't want to have to take a running back high. They feel good about their room. We'll be carrying quite a few into next year, but we've got those guys that all seem that kind of build. We've got the 5'10", the 5'11" guys. But when you get these big, like very understated, these big running back guys that are able to do the dirty work in the short yardage in the red zone, where it's no doubt, like it's no question or anything secret that we have troubles in the red zone. We have to settle for field goals when we shouldn't. But if we're able to get guys like this that are able to punch it in, that they're able to just get a little bit of weight and momentum behind them, and they're able to just use them and take off a handoff and just pound it up where it needs to be. A bit like an Adrian Peterson, we had him. He was effective in that area. And this guy done a great job at a lesser known school, say the FIU Panthers. So he's had a good body of work. Averaged, he's got a smaller rushing yard this season, but he's averaged that workload still. He's still getting the 5.5, which that's all you really ask for. Is if that's on 1st or 2nd down, that gives you a very manageable 2nd or 3rd down. And it's great for when you get to 4th down. If you've got that big, heavy set guy you can bring in that can just take some of the pressure off. And this guy, who knows, like say, someone may get a proper stud, they may get a steal in the later rounds. Like say, it'd be another guy that could really shoot draft boards if he works out, if he's able to show he's got a bit of home run speed across 40 yards, if he's able to look like he's athletic to go with his big build, that it could suddenly see his stock draft increasing. So it's good to see work out with him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to be up alongside, a lot higher quality players as well. I don't think you can sort of take into account still getting, 6 yards per carry on a team like that with not known for producing running backs at all. It takes something, it takes a lot of guts and, a lot of work he has to do himself to be able to get those yards. So he's going to be a really intriguing proposition. Just to finish off the running back room, we can't forget the fullback. And this fullback is, now that I've looked at him a bit more, is actually a very intriguing proposition. So we've been given Connor Haywood who was a 5-year guy from Michigan State. So he's a homegrown guy as well. You probably know his big brother. His name's Cameron Hayward. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler for the Pittsburgh Steelers, one of the most integral parts of their defense. He comes from a great lineage of football players, let's say. So he's 6 foot, 230 pounds, and this guy is sort of a hybrid mismatch all alongside a field. You can do so much with him. So he can play at fullback. He can play the wide tight end role on the, as that inside tight end. You can also put him outside as a receiver. And this guy can block. He can block and chip. He can do sort of all sorts really for you. Over his MSU career, he's got 211 carries for 825 yards and 5 touchdowns. Majority of those did come a few years ago, but he's shown he can rush it. And in the receiving game, he's got 96 receptions for 711 yards and 6 touchdowns. About 400 of those came this year. So they've used him a lot more in the passing game. This guy is versatile. He can run the ball. He can, work as a receiver. He can work as a tight end, a blocker. He's sort of a Swiss Army knife of a fullback here, and you only have to take one look at the family name to know the kind of guy you're going to get here. I think this is going to be another guy, Dan Campbell, who's going to like working with, and creates an intriguing question of what they'll do at fullback.
He is he won't be a fullback in the NFL. Like I say, he's going to be a H-back. He's going to be like Kyle Juszczyk and Pat Ricard. He will go to a wide tight end. He'll play fullback. He'll play running back. He'll have this guy running routes. He's taken an incredible amount of touches for a fullback. You don't often see like 200-300 touches for a traditional fullback. He reminds me of Dalton Keene at Virginia Tech. They used him as a weapon an awful lot. He was picked up by the Patriots. This guy seems like a very Lions Dan Campbell player. I expect to see him in a multitude of positions. I think he's going to go in the later rounds towards undrafted because he will get pigeonholed as that fullback. Well, no one uses a fullback. There's only so many teams that carry one. But I'm glad that we're getting to work him out because he could be a very well tight end at the next level. And we really need a blocking tight end. This is someone that we've actually got a serious need for. And he's not the biggest, but he'll be able to play bigger than he is. But he's got a bit of that speed to him as well. He's got decent hands. So he'd be very good in the red zone. I think this guy could be great, could get a few touchdowns to his name. So he's someone that I think is in a position of need. And if he does really well and he falls on the board, I hate to say it, this could be the end of Kabinda. If we do decide to move on or if we decide to cut ties with him, it could make a very amicable replacement for him. A younger, faster model potentially at that position, how we use him.
Well, I think that's the big thing here. Obviously, Cabrinda's a free agent now. So if we get to the draft and we've not re-signed him, then I think, if Hayward has a good week, that could really be an insight into where he goes, because there's no way we're going to take 2 of them unless they feel they can get them in the undrafted free agent market and bring him in as a challenge. But like I say, when he can do this much, I don't know, it's an intriguing prospect. He's going to be one of the ones I'm watching closely to see how they utilize him and what they're doing with him, because that'll really give you an insight into just how much they're really thinking about going after him. But potentially, a really good halfback there, like you say, and we do need one. So we'll see with that. So that is the end of the running back room. The New York Jets, they got Jerome Ford, the running back from Cincinnati, Hassan Haskins, the Michigan running back, Rashad White, Ryan will know him, Arizona State's premier back this season. I'm sure he's not looking forward to the Lions having to go up against him. Abram Smith, the running back from Baylor. That's a shame. I really want to see him. And then they've got the fullback, Jeremiah Hall from Oklahoma. Quick again, just asking Ash's question. Is there anyone you'd swap out? Who would you swap out and who would you bring in?
Oh, I'd obviously take Rashad White because he's the best pass catching back.
Come on, you know what you're getting with him, though.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best receiving back, I'd say, in his whole class. You don't have to look at the numbers and to see how he led the Pac-12 in PFF grade. So he's 6'2" as well. He's probably one of the most physically imposing. Jerome Ford, he's a bit of a bowling ball. Like I say, you know what you're getting with him because he's another bruiser.
And
but
speed.
like I said, yeah, the Baylor backs, like I said, he had a nice year, but they're the kind of 2 guys. The rest of the guys, Hassan Haskins had a great year, but I don't know about him as a long-term option down the road. He was in a nice system this year, but no, like I said, I think we got a pretty good class again. We definitely keep our fullback. I didn't see much of Oklahoma State even using one, really.
Yeah. I'd bring in Abram Smith, but I don't know who I'd get rid of. Maybe Brian Robinson, but I do want to see him. Screw it. Damian Pierce can go, and I'd bring in Abram Smith instead. I do hope we get a good look at him as well, because we can swap players as well. So hopefully he gets to go. So that's the running back room. We'll move it into the tight ends now, and Ryan's thoughts on the tight end group this year. Not entirely enamored with them, but we do have a couple of prospects in here. The first one I'm only going to go over briefly because we've mentioned him so much, but we did get the big one of Isaiah Likely, the tight end from Coastal Carolina. He is the run after catch specialist, the F-type tight end who you line up as a receiver, who'll get you a ton of yardage, runs routes really well, doesn't really block though. His blocking is very questionable, and for that reason alone, I think we won't go anywhere near him. But I mean, he's going to be a really good receiving tight end at the next level. I don't think we can deny that one.
He's basically who's the kid the Falcons drafted? I've gone blank. He's basically Pitts. Pitts can't block for shit, pardon my French, and Ian Astor. He's basically next year. Kyle Pitts next year will be a wide receiver. He'll change position. He might even change number. He is not a tight end. Isaiah Likely isn't really a tight end either. He can't block, doesn't have the build to block. I don't think you'd put him on the end of the line and ask him to block because you'll just end up in him getting bulldozed or holding. But that's why we got him, because Dan Campbell needs to see, can he learn how to block? Because he's only got like that 6'2" frame. For a tight end, he's very small. Like, he is not a big guy. If he learns to block, then and he's able to run those outs, run the wheel route with his speed, because the wheel is where he'll succeed. If he can shed a block, run out 5 yards, and then tear off on like a fade route, like, he's a touchdown waiting to happen. If he's able to secure and help on the end of the line where we really need it, like, so they're taking a good look at him in that position as a receiving tight end. He's going to be one of the best, and he's going to get drafted probably in the 3rd round onwards. He's going to be one of the first tight ends taken, I've no doubt.
If he learns
how to block, yeah, it could be very.
If he learns how to block, he's a high 2nd round pick. I think I wouldn't. His receiving skill is that good that if he can learn to block, he will go that high, which is the great thing about him. But the minute for now, for me, he represents a luxury pick. You're going for that F-type tight end who's just gonna, like you say, he's a Pitts. He's going to get you lots of yards, and he is a bit of a luxury, which we can't afford at the minute. I think we need more of a blocking option, but I'm glad he's on our team. It's going to be nice to see him, and maybe Campbell can get a bit of blocking in there for him. But we'll move on to the other ones, spend a bit more time on those. So the guy we've seen a bit of this year, because he's been in an offense that we quite like, and this is another productive F-type tight end, the guy who you can sort of move all around your offense. That's Greg Dulcich. He is a 4-year guy out of UCLA, the Bruins. They had quite a potent offense this year. He's 6'3", 245 pounds, and over his career there, he has got 77 receptions for 1,353 yards and 11 touchdowns. So he is a very decent receiving threat there. The blocking is all right. It's nothing special to write home about. He needs to work on his angles a little bit more when it comes to blocking, and he does play quite upright. He needs to get his pad level lower because too many people take advantage of it. But in terms of a day 3 guy, which is probably what he is at the minute, he represents a fairly decent option at tight end if he can, again, work out some of those technical aspects of his blocking.
Yeah, I like him, actually. He's been a potent offense. He's been a potent weapon in an offense that's not pass heavy. They've had DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for a few years now. He's a running quarterback, so he's not had much to work with in the way of receptions, but he's had a nice year this year. I'd say he was one of their better targeted. So he's dependable in the passing game. He works primarily in line, which means he does sit on the end of the offensive line, and then he'll be motioned out, or he'll run a motion or run a route from the end of the line. So he's a willing blocker, that's what I'll say. If you ask him to block, he will. But as you say, if someone gets underneath his pads and gets a hand under his breast or his bosom, you can get up and his leverage. You can lift him up and use his height against him. But there's certainly something there to work with. I think he's going to be one of the more interesting guys because he's had a good career.
Yeah, absolutely. And say he worked well in that offense last year. He does look a receiver there, but again, I don't know. It's a tough one. You do feel like you need sort of the ultimate blocker if we're going to go there, because we've got our receiving guy, but he's certainly one to keep an eye on. This tight end group is intriguing, if anything else. Now, the guy who really does sort of stand out for me, and especially this is when you come to blocker, our next guy, his name is Daniel Bellinger. He is a 4-year tight end from San Diego State. He is 6'6", 255 pounds. He is a big, big, beefy boy. And he's quite versatile. He can play the wide tight end role on the end of the offensive line, or he can play the F. You can move him around a little, although his receiving does need a little bit of work on. But so over his career, he's got 68 receptions, 771 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But first and foremost, this guy is a blocker. He's an impact blocker, and he is really good in the run game, something that obviously we value quite highly here in Detroit. And he's not that bad in pass blocking either. I've seen quite a few reps of him in there. He's got all the aspects he needs to be really good in both assets of the game. And again, a guy who needs fine tuning out. The only thing that really goes against him here is athleticism does hold him back when it comes to the passing game. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, doesn't get a lot of separation, and really needs some fine tuning when it comes to his receiving game. So he's sort of down in the day 3 pick selection as well. But if you're looking for a blocker, a big beefy guy who will help the run game, this is the guy to go to. And he's just show a lot of promise if developed correctly.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like that old mantra, like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can put a tight end within the line and ask them to block someone, but they can't always do it. I'd rather teach someone how to catch and run routes than teach them how to block, because one of them will come a lot more naturally. If you can block as a tight end, like you're already half the way there. You've already got half the battle, because that means you're able to help in a run game, because the Lions have decided to finally realize that we need a run game, and we're actually going to start working on it now. So we've taken a big step there. He sounds very much like a Josh Hill. Like say he's a primarily pass and a run blocker, but he will peel out and he will take checks downs if needs be. So if he needs to just work on the route tree, that's fine by me. He's got the big build I'm looking for. There's a few guys I've seen that are 6'5", 6'6", that penciled my name on that. And also, he's a red zone threat, isn't he, at 6'6". If you put him on in the line, but then get him to release out, like say if he's able to basketball block someone out, get his way to the yard line, you're going to fire something in, he's going to get touchdowns. So I think from a primary base, he's got something to work on. So I think that's good.
Yeah, again, he represents a really intriguing prospect for us. So, it just depends what the Lions want to do with tight end. We need one, but what value are they going to put on one? Well, these day 3 guys do represent value if they are still knocking around there. And we end out with the one I probably like the least out of all these, and it's not necessarily all his fault. That is Grant Calcaterra. He's a 3-year guy from Oklahoma, and he's also spent his last year at SMU. He's 6'4", 242 pounds. He is a playmaking F-type tight end. This guy is a receiver in all but name, pretty much. In his career, he's got 79 receptions, 1,102 yards, and 13 touchdowns. Now, people may have known about this, but he missed his 2020 season because he retired. He had concussion issues, and he forwent his year. He retired from the game, but he decided to come back. And, for 2021, he signed with SMU, and they used him primarily as a receiving tight end. He wasn't used in the run game. He's a really bad run blocker. It's not what he's in there for. He wasn't put into those plays because they knew they couldn't trust him in that situation. But as a receiver, again, he's really good receiver. He runs his routes well. He's got good hands. He's got good understanding of what it takes to, get the ball quite far downfield. But the lack of blocking for here just makes this an absolute no-no for me, especially when you have a history of concussions. It's not his fault, but you're just so wary about an injury like that, especially when, like us, you're going to be asking a tight end to do a lot of nitty-gritty, dirty work.
He's Jordan Reed 2.0. I am not touching the kid whatsoever. Like he's one injury away from retiring, so he just ain't worth it. And like I say, he's not a blocker. He's dominatingly a receiving tight end, and then when he does as well, concussions aren't his fault, but as well, like a guy that's not always able to protect himself or take shots and has got mileage on the clock, like say, or when he retired, decided to come back. That's never a decision. I'll be surprised if he gets to the NFL if he's got issues in camp. He's going to really struggle. So there's not a lot he can show me that can convince me that I'm spending any capital on him in the draft.
I feel like undrafted free agent probably awaits for him. So yeah, that's it. We only got 4 tight ends. The Jets got 5. This is going to be a very easy one, but they got Trey McBride, the Columbia State guy, Jeremy Ruckert, the Ohio State tight end, Charlie Kohler. He's probably the best blocking tight end of the lot of them. He was from Iowa State. Cole Turner, the big man mountain of a threat from Nevada, and then Jake Ferguson, who's also a really good blocking tight end from Wisconsin. This is probably the hardest one of the lot. We can only trade one guy, but there's at least 3 in here I'd trade for and trade 3 guys out, I reckon.
I want them all. I don't like our group at all. I like everyone in that group, and especially Jake Ferguson. He's the best blocker in this class, I think. And because he comes from such a run-heavy offense, he is at Wisconsin, but he's also can pass. He can catch as well. He's like 6'4", 6'5". He's got a big frame, but I hate our tight end group, and I like theirs.
Yeah, I feel like we did get a bit rinsed with this. I'd be taking Trey McBride absolutely for one.
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best receiver, I think.
He's the best dual threat guy. I think his blocking's good enough and his receiving's good enough that he can do both.
Yeah, Cole Turner.
I'd take Cole Turner.
He did really well with in Nevada.
I'd take McBride. I'd take Kohler just because we need a blocking tight end and I want them to get a good look at him. I'd take Turner. I'd take Ferguson. I'd probably swap maybe all 4. They'll keep Bellinger, but they have an extra guy.
Ruckert's done nothing at Ohio State. They don't utilize a tight end, and for me, they never have. So
no,
I don't think he'll do much next level.
Yeah, so answer there, we probably pretty much swap all the tight ends around. Right, move it on. Receivers. I feel like we've been screwed a little bit on this one as well, but on Deeper Impact, there are some guys in here potentially are very interesting to look at. So the first guy we have on here is Calvin Austin III. He is a 4-year guy out of Memphis. He's 5'9", 162 pounds. And you go, oh my God, that's light. But, he has big advantages and disadvantages to his game. His career at Memphis, he's got 156 receptions, 2,541 yards. That includes 2 1,000-yard seasons, his most recent 2, and 22 touchdowns. He also carried 8 times for 169 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they use him a bit as a gadget guy there, a bit more versatility to his game. And he's actually also got 2 punt return touchdowns as well. So he has done stuff in the receiving game, in the returning game as well. In 2021, he got 74 receptions, 1,149 yards, 8 touchdowns. He just had one carry, but it went for 69 yards and a touchdown. And he also got a punt return touchdown. Now, this guy, just put his size to the side for one moment. This guy's got rare explosion off the line. He is so damn quick. It is unreal. He gets off the line before you can even blink. His release and route running techniques are just some of the best you'll see. He's gone before you know it. And he can get separation, whether you're in zone coverage or man coverage, he will get separation away from you. And he's got versatility on the line as well. They use him in motion. Like I say, they use him on jet sweeps. They use him on all sorts. So he's a Swiss Army knife who is just really damn fast. And you can do all sorts with him. And as you've seen, some of the stats he's put up in the last few years, he's been getting a lot of success, especially when he's burning one-on-one coverage in the secondary. The only trouble that comes with a guy this size is obviously his size. That creates issues. Apparently, he might be even smaller than advertised. He's 5'9". If he's any smaller than that, he's getting really into really small territory. Obviously, he'll have a smaller catch radius, so you need a lot more of an accurate quarterback because he can't really reach and grab as much as other ones can. And then obviously when it comes to taller defensive backs, corners, safeties, they will be able to keep pace with him because of the longer strides. And then it also brings a problem in the blocking game because you can't be the most effective blocker when you're a lot smaller than some of these edge rushers who are coming round at you. But in terms of a guy who can give you a lot of value when it comes to versatility on the line, which the Lions value, I mean, he's a really, really intriguing prospect with a lot of upside.
Yeah, you look at him and you think like he's like Tyreek Hill. Like he's got that burning speed. Like say he's got the short arms, so he doesn't have the radius, doesn't have the wingspan. But the Lions we desperately need a returner as well, because we're making part with these guys that they're doing okay, but they're never going to tear one off. They're just going to get average field position. This guy has got the ability to take it to the house and possibly change momentum in a game. He's really fast, works. He's going to, well, I don't know. He's going to primarily work out the slot, but we kind of need an outside guy. I don't know if one day he's able to make that transition out and be a Tyreek Hill kind of guy that works on the outside. He's got the speed and he needs to extend the route tree. I agree with that. He needs to work on advancing in everything. Can't just be deep, can't just all be deep shots, but also used running back, like say jet sweeps and motion. So he's able to drag a defender across the field with him, but he gets the separation once the ball's in his hands. They can't keep up with him, which is one of the more dynamic ways to use him that we only started using late in the season, motions. So it's something we need to work into the scheme. So someone that can probably bring that added side of the playbook to him, where he can get him advanced in the run game as well, or flea flickers. He's going to be great for like trick players maybe as well.
Yeah, again, he's another one who's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him, because I think the more they try and use him, the more different looks they try and get with him will show the interest level that they have when it comes to him. So possible sleeper guy to watch there. The next guy doesn't really need much of an introduction. You've mentioned him more than enough times this year. And he's probably one of the biggest threats we've got on this team. That's obviously Dontario Drummond, 3-year guy from Ole Miss. He's 6 foot, 215 pounds. His career, 114 receptions, 1,633 yards, 15 touchdowns. Got 6 rushes for 40 yards and a rushing touchdown. This year, he's 76 receptions, 1,028 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he got his rushing touchdown this year as well. I mean, you've seen enough of him. What are you getting with Dontario Drummond?
Yeah, the numbers, he's basically got all his numbers this year, because if you go in previous years, he's had to work with the likes of Elijah Moore. He's had to share with AJ Brown. He's had to share with DK Metcalf at the end of his career, because he's been there 3 years now. DeMarcus Lodge, like he's had a plethora of guys that's been behind in the depth chart. He's not the biggest, but he plays bigger than he is, 6'1", 6 foot. Like I say, he's got great hands. Everything that comes in, he's gobbled everything up. He's a possession receiver from what I've seen. Really crisp route running. Like Matt Corral has looked to him all year, him and Braylon Sanders. Like say, he stretches the field. He does a really good job of getting in behind defensive backs. And once the game, he's got that deceiving speed. He's able to get away downfield, get yards after the catch. But really good, wins the pair. Doesn't get the most separation, but he's good in a contested catch as well. He's got the strength to keep the ball. He's got a nice route tree. I think he's someone that we really need, because we really need an outside receiver. And he has pretty much proved that he can play out there all year. Doesn't have to come in for the slot. Is that medium to long range that we so desperately need. So he's been a really good player this year, and he's got them out the crap as well a few times. Been busted players. He's able to make stuff happen. Like saying deep shots, he's able to haul passes in when he's going up and he's got safety over the top of him. So he's a great all-round receiver, and he's had a monster year. Like I say, he was one of the main reasons Ole Miss was even relevant this year.
Yeah, and I know he's quite popular on Lions mock drafts as well at the moment, especially probably yours. You'd have him on there if you had the opportunity to, I guess.
Yeah, no, I've had him in like that 3rd round kind of range where I think he'd be really good value.
Mm-hmm. Yep, sure. Be a name we're probably going to hear a lot more of. Moving on, we're getting on to the first of two SMU guys we've got here. Obviously, the Mustangs had a really good season with Tanner Mordecai under center, and we have received a couple of his receiving proteges who have benefited as a result of his wonderful play. First one, his name is Danny Gray. He's been at SMU for 2 years. He's 6'1" and 180 pounds. His career is 82 receptions, 1,251 yards, 13 touchdowns. He got 6 rushes for 70 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. His 2021, quite simple, 49 receptions, 803 yards, 9 touchdowns. He was one of many weapons that Tanner Mordecai used to extreme benefit this year. So he made the first team All ACC as a receiver, so one of the best guys in the league. And this guy, now his sort of modus operandi, he is a straight line speed merchant. When he's running those north to south lanes, he goes and he's gone, and you're really struggling to catch him up. But it's not just a case of he's really speedy and gets away. He can vary that speed as well to create separation. He can stutter step, stop, go. He gives defensive backs all sorts of problems in trying to create separation from them. His ball tracking is really good. His balance is really good. So when he's looking over his shoulder for those deep passes, he's got no issue with those. He knows where the ball is. He's got really good spatial awareness. When it comes to him and where he needs to improve, and a big thing that Dan Campbell obviously emphasizes, it's blocking. When it comes to, Dan Campbell likes his receivers to block, and he is sort of physically and technically deficient at blocking at the minute. He does have issues, and it's something that he does really need to work on. And he's also inexperienced when it comes to sort of been in press coverage against really top tier guys. He's going to get to go up against some of them in the Senior Bowl here. So it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with the press coverage and sort of fighting his way out of that. But I mean, there's a lot to like with this guy, some technicals to work on, but he's coming from a very successful offense this year, and he's got a really good stage to show just what he can do.
Yeah, wide receivers that come from air raid usually do a lot better than quarterbacks. First thing I want him to do is I need to put some weight on. He's a bit scrawny, which will help with the blocking. Like I say, he's got that 6'1" frame, but only 185 pounds, so he could do with bulking up a little bit. As you mentioned, the blocking. Because we know he's a burner, he gets a lot of cover 3, cover 2. You don't get guys in his face because they're scared to get beaten off him by the line. So, as you mentioned, once he gets to the next level, he's going to have guys that are going to be grabbing him, playing press and man coverage. And we're going to be able to learn if he's going to be able to shed a block or not once he's able to get separation from the line. Because running 5 yards at a guy, and I've seen him run a slant where he took off at like 30 mile an hour, and a linebacker could never keep up with him. And he turned upfield, breezed past the safety for a touchdown. He does great things out the slot. He is so fast when he runs those slants, those skinny posts, where he gets the ball, makes one cut. And then when he goes outside, if you put him on a fade or a go route, there's some defensive backs that will bite on his double move and he will just burn past them. As I say, tracks the ball really well when it's in over the pass or shoulder throw, and he's got to work towards the sideline. He knows where he is. He's able to haul that ball and get the feet in bounds or take it to the house. So it's the technical side that he needs to work on at the next level. He's got the athleticism. He's got speed. He's got good hands. I've never seen him drop too much. It's just now, I'd say, tidying it up a little bit and also working the more balanced offense, where if he's going to be screens and things like that, he's going to have to be able to sustain a block or pick up a safety that's crashing down, because these are things he's just never being asked to do. If you don't know how to do it, it's just because he's never had to do it before. So it's going to be about discipline and just practice for him now. But I like what I see with him, as well as his teammate. They're a good tandem. I'm glad we've got both.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a thing for a lot of these guys is, they've been asked to do certain things, but they're going to have to prove now that they can be all round in the games they do. And, it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt to it, because they've been in systems for so long that getting asked to do all this sort of stuff they need to do in the NFL can make or break you very quickly. But it'll be interesting to see him. I'm looking forward to seeing him as part of our wide receiver rotation. Hopefully he has a good game for us. Next guy up, we say we need a receiver. Well, this guy is the college returner extraordinaire. This is Velus Jones Jr. Spent 4 years at USC in the Pac-12, and then he spent his last 2 years with Tennessee. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. His career, 120 receptions, 1,434 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. And then his returning stats, he's got 122 kick returns, 2,973 yards, averaging 24 yards per return. He's also got 2 return touchdowns. He's had a really good 2021. He's excelled as both receiver and returner. 62 receptions, 807 yards, 7 touchdowns, 23 kick returns, 628 yards, an average of 27 yards per return, and 1 kick return touchdown. I mean, not only does he immediately offer you a big upgrade on special teams, I mean, on offense, he works as a kick returner and a very damn good one over his college career. But on defense, he also works as a gunner. He's got 4.4 speed. He's down the side, chasing returners down. So he's an immediate upgrade for your special teams, which is what a lot of receivers, that's their way in to your team. But as a receiver himself, like I say, he's got explosive speed. The acceleration is there, and his run after catch ability is really good. But, you know, for him, he's one of those who's going to suffer through how he's been used at Tennessee. His route tree is very limited. They've used him in a very basic way, and he's never had to really expand his route knowledge or tree. And that's the thing he's going to have to prove here, that he can do all these different sort of routes there, other than what he's just been taught at Tennessee. But I mean, in terms of what you're getting, not only in the returning game, but as a potential receiver as well, this guy's got a 4th or 5th round rating on him at the minute. You could potentially get a hell of a lot better than that if you help him realize his full potential. But he's got all the tools he needs to be a really great gadget guy at the next level.
Oh yeah, he's going to get drafted just because he's a returner. Like I say, he's one of the best for last 4 or 5 years. Kick returns. You're going to get him on punts as well. He's going to be returning everything. He's going to be jet sweeps. You'll use him as a running back. He's going to be working stuff like that. So he's going to be an explosive player next season. The next level. He also mentioned, like I say, he's not even a small guy. You expect guys like this to be small, but he's not. Like, he's lanky. He's got that 6'2" frame. As you say, it's the expansion now. He's used to working in space and having blockers leading out for him. Can he do the dirty work? Can he make catches in tight spaces when he's got people in his face? Is he going to be okay getting hit, running across the middle when he's working on those intermediate to shallow routes? How does he work when he can't get separation? Is he going to be able to haul it in, brace himself for impact? Because he's not someone that's had to take a huge amount of hit across the middle, like say, even though he returns kicks. So it's going to be certainly a step up in his workload if he's going to be an every down, every play kind of guy that needs to work on expanding. Like, he can't just run deep all the time. We know he's got the huge speed, but it's not air raid no more. You're not going to be running a 9 or a fade or a corner every route. You're going to have to make things happen, yards after carriage, getting these short things. So it's going to be about vision now. And let's see how tough he is. Let's see if he's able to just sustain a strong workload and get asked to do more in less windows, tighter space. Let's see how tough he is, because at the moment we know he's elusive and he's got the explosion, but don't know if you can do it at the next level and be able to take all those hits.
Yeah, I think this guy potentially offers you probably, you know, could offer you the most out of some of these guys altogether if he realizes it. He's certainly the most intriguing guy for me out of this. Just like I say, you want a returner, you want a great specialty, but he gives you those straight away, and the potential to be a really good receiver as well as that. You know, it's really tantalizing there, and I'm really hoping he shows up for this. So, you know, again, another one I hope has a really good day for us, because I think we could be considering him at some stage if he does well. Moving on, a few receivers left to go. We've got the second guy from SMU now. So this is Reggie Roberson Jr. He spent his first year at Western Virginia, but he wasn't really used there. He transferred to SMU, where he spent 4 years. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. His career, 174 receptions, 2,734 yards, and 24 touchdowns. 2021, he got 51 receptions for 625 yards and 6 touchdowns, although his special teams has been very limited over his career. He's not really done any special teams work of note or working out the backfield either. But again, this is another guy. He's a really explosive playmaker. He's got rapid acceleration, and again, the ability to stretch secondaries and give, defensive backs a really hard time. This was just a feature of SMU this year. He's not unlike his counterpart that we mentioned some time ago. But again, he's going to suffer from how he's been utilized at college level. As at SMU, he's been used all the time statically out left as a wide receiver. He's not been used in motion. He's not been used, on the right hand side. This is the versatility you need to succeed at NFL level, especially if you want to get drafted really high. Again, he's a great player to watch, and some of the plays he makes are amazing. But that lack of versatility from college is really going to hurt him unless he can show at the Senior Bowl that he's capable of doing a lot more.
Yeah, he's had more success, especially in the red zone, than Gray. I think he's probably a more solid receiver, but he's one-dimensional. Like I say, he's not that fast. He's not that big. His hands aren't that great. But he's been fed into a system where he's been drip fed and he's had stuff put on a plate for him, which Tanner Mordecai has done this year. He's dropped them in his bucket, in his basket, and he's had a successful thing. Like, this guy he's gonna have a low ceiling. Like, this guy he's probably got a higher floor where you might get a bit more consistency, but you're not going to expect great things from him. He's certainly going to have to pitch in, like say, blocking. Special teams, he might even have to be a tackler, might have to get on the kick return, punt return if he wants to really earn them snaps, if he's not a dynamic returner himself. So he's certainly going to have to go a long way to earning any starters, or he's going to be a wide receiver 3, 4, or 5. He'll be well down the depth chart at the next level unless he can find a way to separate and distinguish himself, guys, because he's the weakest one in our group, I think, because he doesn't have any distinguishing trait compared to the rest.
No, and he's had 2 seasons ended by injury as well. So you've got to figure how the health is doing long term as well. Obviously, we don't want any more injured players. It's a shame because I think a lot of these guys have promised, but we've not been given the higher end wide receivers, which is really what we need now. We've got our depth guys. We've got our 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys in this team at the minute. We need the high level, top notch guys now, and I feel like we've been robbed of the vast majority of those from this split here. We've got 2 guys left, so again, another couple of intriguing prospects to finish off with here. The first one's Jalen Tolbert. He's a 4-year guy from South Alabama. He's 6'3", bit bigger, 190 pounds, 178 career receptions, 3,140 yards. Again, he's got two 1,000-yard seasons. The last 2 he's played, got 22 touchdowns. His 2021 season, 82 receptions, 1,474 yards, so nearly half his career production in 1 year, and 8 touchdowns. Now, he's like I say, he's a taller guy. He plays on the outside. He's an outside receiver, sort of a medium to long field threat. He made the first team All Sun Belt this year. He was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, you just saw his stats alone, how great a season that he's had. He does have a little bit of experience working in the slot, but he's best working his north to south routes on the outside. Catching's really good. His route running, the routes he knows how to run, he does so very well, very fluidly. But again, another who needs to expand his repertoire if he's going to really succeed at the next level a bit more. And again, his blocking does need a little bit of work there. He's got a 4th round label on him at the moment. He could potentially get that a little higher, but I don't know. What do you think about Jalen Tolbert?
I think he's the cream of our crop in this group. I think he is exactly what the Lions need. He's the biggest, which helps, 6'3". He has got that, as you mentioned, he has got the ability to get in behind a defense. He is able to, also, he's made Jake Bentley look good at times. Like, he has certainly helped out his quarterback. He is one that he's willing to take a deep shot. He tracks the ball incredibly well. He's got great hands. I'd say he works well in a contested catch as well. So he's someone that he's definitely able to stretch the field when needs be. He doesn't do the messing around inside. He can work out the slot, but I feel like he will be penciled in as an outside receiver. He's got the build, he's got the hands. He doesn't necessarily need to block that often because he's got a good release off the line. He's fairly strong at that point. Like I say, he's not the fastest. He doesn't have the high-end top speed for me. So he doesn't always get the biggest cushion from a defender. So they will challenge him to try and get past them. But once he's able to, he works on the double move. He's got a crisp roots. Like I say, he's be able to get success there. He's the one I want to see the most out of this group because I think he's the most I think we need from a wide receiver. He's got the potential to be that 1A, 1B. Like he's got the best tools to be an outside receiver, I think.
Yeah, I know he's getting a lot of love from a lot of the draft experts I've seen around there. So, it's good that he's on our side and we're going to get to work him really well. I don't really know the greatest amount about him, so it's going to be nice to really get to dig into him a little more and see some tape put out there. Finishing off our receiver group, and this is a guy who's garnered a lot of love, especially on Lions mock drafts. It's Trey Turner. He's the wide receiver, the 4-year guy from Virginia Tech. He's 6'2" and 190 pounds. His career, 134 receptions, 2,229 yards and 14 touchdowns. Also a little bit out the backfield he's worked. He's got 53 carries for 456 yards and a further 4 touchdowns. He went 40 for 675 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2021. And he went 12 carries for 64 yards, although he's played absolutely nothing on special teams. Now, this guy's ended up, he's top 5 all time for Virginia Tech wide receivers, which may not sound much given with his records there, but they've had very inconsistent quarterback play whilst he's been there. They've had Braxton Burmeister the last few years, who's been really hit and miss. For him to still be able to break some of these records out there and get in the top 5 shows just what a real good job that he's done there. His ball skills are terrific. His body control, especially through contact, is really good. I've watched some tape on him. Honestly, his hands are really, really good. Catching passes just comes so natural to him. He drops very little. His roots, he adjusts well if the throws errant. He's had to deal with that in Virginia for a while, errant throws going all over the place. So his adjustability is really good. But again, I suppose it's a theme with a lot of these guys there. It's his route tree that needs to diversify a little bit more, and he needs to put on a little bit of weight and strength to improve his blocking skills, because you do a lot of blocking in Virginia, but it's something he can certainly work on there. But he's got a lot of love from Lions fans, especially late in this draft. I see a lot of people take him round 6, 7, or maybe 5 sometimes, but potentially something to work with there.
There is, yeah. There's a lot to work with. I like this guy because I've seen him play. He knows how to use his body. Like I say, he's got good body control. He's only got that 190-pound frame, but he's surprisingly hard to bring down. He's very elusive in open space, like trying to track him or keep tabs on him is not easy. He's at that slenderish weight where he's able to make a guy miss. Like I say, he's got great hands. He makes good adjustments. If a pass is going behind him, I've seen him able to reach back and get it. Or if he's going the wrong shoulder, he's able to make that adjustment, which shows that he's able to make decisions on the fly. He's got that IQ, tracks the ball well. He's had success as well in the running backs, like you say, 500 rushing yards. So he's someone that also is able to take the ball in his hands. He can be trusted. He's got great ball security as well. He's able to work in design plays where he can pick up the block, like I say, if he needed to put a little bit of weight on him, and you might be able to get him to pick up the extra blitzer if needs be. But he's going to be a great guy to work on. Like I say, you can have him on jet sweeps. You might use him in a reverse on a trick play. He's going to be that kind of guy that can beat the edge. It's going to be hard to seal him on the edge because he's got that elusiveness to get around. So he's someone that is garnering a bit of hype. He's been the man for Virginia Tech for a few years now, even with some shoddy quarterback play. Still put up very respectable numbers when he's had to. And he's someone that's got a lot of talents that you like to see. Like I say, it's going to be a refinement and just where to use him at the next level, where he's going to be the place that he really does excel. Is it going to be a slot, using it at the backfield, like say, putting him on special teams, like if you want to go. I don't like say if you can put him on the long, deep routes as well, put him a bit of misdirection. So there's a lot for him to do there. It's just finding the right space for him, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I think the big thing with our receiver core is that there's a lot that they need to prove. There's a lot that they need to show that they've not been able to do as much in college, just schematically or anything like that. So, probably one of the groups you'll have to watch closest to see how they develop as the week goes on. But I mean, I just feel like this is one we've been really screwed on because the New York Jets, the group of receivers they got, so they got Jahan Dotson, the Penn State wide receiver, Romeo Doubs, one of my favorite wide receivers from Nevada, Carson Strong's most trusted target. They got Bo Melton from Rutgers. They got Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, who's going to be a hell of a prospect going into this draft. I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Senior Bowl, even if he's against us. They got Khalil Shakir. I know he's been on your radar a lot, Ryan, the Boise State wide receiver. And then they got Christian Watson, who is the North Dakota State receiver as well. They've got a lot of the round two guys, a lot of the, very high ceiling guys who there's a lot to love about them. And again, I'm just going to straight out say I'd probably swap 5 of them. I think Melton's the only one I wouldn't take, and I might keep Velus, but outside of that, I'd swap every single one.
I'll take Pierce and I'll take Watson, because Watson, I've seen enough of him, but I want to see him go with the big boys because he's got a massive, he's 6'5". He has got a huge frame and a radius, but he's built like this. He's skinny as a chip like this pen. So he needs to work on muscle and strength, but he's got great speed. Alec Pierce, like 6'3", but he's got a good frame. Khalil Shakir, I know what he does. He can play defensive back. He's an elite returner. Like, you could put him at corner at safety because he's got the best ball skills. He has phenomenal ball skills. He can get interceptions. He can catch touchdowns. He's one of the smaller, more slender guys, but he can play a multitude of positions all over. He's a proper gadget. Like I say, he'll go in the middle rounds, but he's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Certainly, yeah, I wish we had him. I wish we had the lot of them there. That's the one group where I just hate the Jets for getting all the talent. But like I say, a lot to be maybe surprised about by our guys on there. I'm not going to write any of them off yet. Certainly a lot of tantalizing prospects. And we're going to finish off with the offensive line. I'm aware we have been going on this for some time now. So I'm just going to read out who we've got. And then if there's anyone you want to zero in on as to who you'd like for the Lions, then go for it. So our offensive line, we've been given Spencer Burford, the left tackle from UTSA. I absolutely love him. Luke Fortner, the center from Kentucky. Ed Ingram, the offensive guard from LSU. Braxton Jones, the offensive tackle from Southern Utah. Darian Kennard, the offensive tackle from Kentucky. Max Mitchell, the offensive tackle from the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Dylan Parham, the center from Memphis. Chris Paul, the tackle from Tulsa. We've got a pair of guards from Georgia. We've got Jamare Sayer and Justin Schaefer. And then we end off with Lester Smith, the guard from Virginia Tech. Start with one of my favorites, end with one of my favorites. Spencer Burford, I absolutely love the hell out of this guy. He's an all-CUSA first teamer from this year. He was the first ever 4-star recruit who went down to UTSA. Could have got deals at much bigger colleges, but he chose to go down there. He's 6'5", 290 pounds. Gave up 4 sacks, over 390 pass reps last year for college. That's pretty good, especially against some of the pass rushers he was facing against. And not only that, but that offensive line helped UTSA break pretty much every rushing record that was ever held. Sincere McCormack just destroyed records for fun down there in Texas, and he was a real big part of this. This guy has explosion and movement. It's so fast. He's such a beast in the run game. He gets his initial block off, and before you know it, he's up in the linebackers. If any of the secondary come up, he just balls them all to one side. He's so strong. And then even in the passing game, he can deal with blitzers. He's got the agility to mirror the speed rushers. I mean, I project him as maybe going as a guard when it comes to the draft. And Jesus, if we are going to go guard, then I'd be all over him, absolutely all over him. The guy's just a beast, coming from a run-specific scheme, which we really need as well to help our run game get going.
Yeah. What Dan Campbell, like you say, the likes of the offensive lines coach is going to look for, they're going to look for versatility out there. We're going to look for guys that can play tackle, guard, even be fifth or fourth string center. They're going to be lining them up all over. Like I say, they're going to be seeing how good they are pulling as well, because we're going to want to try find a new pulling guard or a tackle. But run heavy schemes like that will do really well. And we've got a big beefy O-line, so having this big 6'4" body is what I like. Did we also have Abraham Lucas from Washington State? I thought he was on the diagram.
No, I don't believe so, unless I missed him. I got
I thought
everybody
he was
off
on our
there, I
diagram.
think. Oh, have I just? Oh, don't go showing me up on here. Who did you say?
Could have been wrong. I thought we had Abraham Lucas, the Washington State guy too.
Abraham Lucas. No, he's on the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got both the Central Michigan guys as well, which I'm really disappointed with.
I do like. Is it Darian Kennard, the Kentucky
Darian Kennard,
guy?
yeah, he was one of the other guys I was going to mention.
He's super aggressive. They have a proper feisty O-line there. Like you say, they're really good at getting to the next level, disengaging off Blakes. Like I say, they got good hands as well. They get good pop. Like I say, they like to pancake guys. Like he's a guy that I've seen. They had a strong running offense in Kentucky this year for Rodriguez and even Will Levis, who's a running quarterback. So they were able to seal the edge for him. And Kennard was one of those guys on the outside that was uses his body and his size really well. Like say, someone that's got a lot of fire in his belly. So he's someone I certainly want to look at if he's going to probably make a lot of these guys that say tackle probably project as guards, because there's not many guys that can hold their own as a starting tackle in the NFL. The guys that are just pigeonholed at centre, they're going to have a lot harder time, like say, if they can't prove that they can play anywhere else or anyone that's not as versatile. Because these days, as an offensive lineman, you have to be able to play everything. You've got to be able to play pretty much every position, even be an extra lineman as a tight end. Like you will get asked to do a lot of things that you will not ask to be doing in college, because the schemes will be a lot different, and you'll have to get out for blocking screens like we've used with Sewell. These guys don't get asked to do that in college. They're not asked to get out and block guys that far out before the ball gets there. So these are the kind of things you'll expect to see them doing it, where the ball is there and you need to move around, pull them, reverses, things like that. So they'll certainly make sure that they're going to give them more to think about when it's just blocking.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think many of these tackles are going to go there in the draft, but I think as far as guard prospects going, that's, I suppose if we really are going to draft anybody on an offensive line, it's going to be a guard. Not that I want Vaitai to be cut anymore, but it's probably the place you're going to go. And you've got some good guards in there as well. I mean, Lessiter Smith, he's a really good guard. I mean, he comes, the Virginia Tech guys, they run the ball a hell of a lot there. Braxton Burmeister's a lot of design runs, and he's really good in the run game as well. So if you're wanting some sort of very good run game guards in there, I mean, you've got the pair from Georgia as well. I don't really know too much about that. I know their D-line very well, absolutely fierce, but I think their offensive line's done pretty good this year as well. They've done a good job projecting Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, no, he's been kept upright pretty well. For a guy that's not very mobile either, because Stetson Bennett is not a mobile quarterback. Like he's not the best runner, so they've kept him upright and he's had a clean pocket to work with. He's barely been sacked all year.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know, is there anyone else who sort of stands out from you from the offensive line, or is it just not really as much of a sort of big priority for you this year?
I've seen Ed Ingram play at LSU. They've had a shaky year. They've not been run heavy because they've just not had that Premier Elite back, and they've had a multitude of recycling quarterbacks. So he's done pretty well. Like I say, he's not one of the most experienced guys, let's say, but he doesn't fit one of those run block, pass block systems, because LSU, it's been very messy there. So he's had to just pick up where he can and try keep his quarterback off the dirt. So he's someone that could be one of those late round steals. I project he will play guard at the next level. Like I say, I don't think there'll be any chance of him converting to a tackle.
Yeah, agreed. Det Fan Man's in the chat. Thanks for joining us. He said last year we were told the D-line was the position with the least talent depth in the draft, and then we drafted two of them. Yeah, we did, but we drafted good ones. Is there a position this year that has similarly light depth? I mean, the first one that comes out to me, I guess, is tight end. That's very light this year.
It is. That is a tight end. Quarterback. I think quarterback is
quarterbacks lie on elite prospects, but there's a hell of a lot more middling round guys than there were last year. potentially
talk
good
about,
guys. I don't
do you
know
know
about
what corners? There's a few corners, but then the drop off is drastic. If you're looking for a starter for a cornerback, I think you're gonna have to go high this year. Because I don't like the depth.
I don't know. We did a corner section during this. I felt like we got quite a few names when we did our corner section during the season, but I'll have to go back and check that one. But yeah, never know.
They're not following
right.
a great class though. Rookie corners
No.
this year for me really struggled. This was a bad year in the NFL for rookie corners. They did not cover themselves with glory, so it's not the hardest class to follow. But I don't know. I only like a handful of them to go early, and then the rest like.
As we now know, undrafted free agency is the place to go get starting corners. So hell, we can skip the draft completely. We'll just let Brad Holmes go and get another couple of studs out of undrafted free agency. So yeah, just to finish this off, the Jets O-line, they've got a few of the better guys in here as well. They got Daniel Falele, I think I can pronounce his name right, it's Falele. Luke Godecker, he's the right tackle from Central Michigan. He's one I've really had my eye on for this. If you want a guy who can give you guard tackle versatility, especially on the right-hand side, which is where we might need it, he's the guy to go to. It's going to be interesting to see him. Just wish he was on our side. You've got Marquise Hayes from Oklahoma. You've got Zion Johnson, the right guard from Boston College. He's a high projected second round pick now. If you're looking for a guard pick to replace Vaitai, he's the one-stop shop to go to. Boston College, they have really good offensive line this year and they produce good NFL offensive linemen. Abram Lucas, as Ryan has already mentioned, from Washington State. Trevor Penning, I've seen his name put in and around the first round actually this year, so potentially the highest drafted lot of all the O-line available in the Senior Bowl. Bernard Raymond, he's like the 10'10" Austrian man mountain from Central Michigan. He's their left tackle. He's absolutely bloody huge, and he's got a second round projection on him as well. Going to be nice to see him. Got Cole Strange, got Andrew Stoiber, I hope that's his name. He's the Michigan man. And then you've got Matt Waletsko and Nick Sakel as well. Again, they've got a few of the guys I wanted on there, and potentially some of the higher ranked ones going in the draft.
Yeah, I prefer that group again. Matt Waletsko, that's the guy I was talking about earlier. Been a mainstay on that North Dakota State line. And you can tell such a run, heavy ground pound, had a fantastic game in the championship, as did most of the linemen. Really good, heavy stance, like beats his feet well. And he's rock solid. He's very hard to move once he sets his feet. He's about 6'6", so he's another one of those man mountain guys where doesn't turn the quickest, but he's got solid hands and a base. So if you stand up to him or try to get underneath him, you're not going to get leverage. He's really strong, especially in run blocking. It'll be the pass blocking where he needs to work on his the hip movement and a bit of agility where he needs to get moving around if someone tries to beat him on the outside. But another guy that looks like he could be another guy at the next level. So they've got a really good group. Lucas, another big mauler as well. Could actually play a tackle, like I say. He's strong, but he's got a bit more footwork to him as well. That's the difference between guards and tackles. It's footwork usually. Don't matter how big or strong you are, you've got to be able to react, pick up guys and blitzers. So there's a really good group there for the Jets. The Jets have done well in the Senior Bowl on offense. They've got some nice groups there.
Yeah, I do tend to agree. I do feel like, especially receiver, say tight ends, offensive line, they have done pretty well. I do like our group of running backs, and I do really like our group of quarterbacks, but all part of the process, and there's going to be some steals in there, I guess. I mean, it's been mentioned in the chat this evening. How many do you reckon are going to end up on our team from the Senior Bowl? But I could potentially see a few of our picks, just looking at the offense alone. I could see us spending a few picks from the Senior Bowl on these guys that we've got.
I could see a few. Did we take anyone from the Senior Bowl last year? I don't feel like we did.
I don't know. I don't. Off the top of my head, I've no idea.
No. Off the top of my head, I would have to check. I don't think we did, but no. Yes, I don't know. Like, it's nice to see a good look at him, but if anything, this could put you off a player more than it can put you on them. I suppose seeing them in person, like just watching the tape. So the likelihood of getting a few of them is probably minimal, but there's one or two that you might fall in love with that you might decide that you're going to trade up for. Like there's guys here that you moved.
Oh,
right.
that's interesting. Yeah, I just checked. Barnes was at the Senior Bowl. Well,
that's why they traded up for him then, eh?
Must be. So, yeah. Oh, God. Oh, actually, looking at it, we got a few then. So our second and fourth, Levi was from there as well. So we spent our second and fourth picks and traded up for one.
Did we play against them or coach them?
I don't think we weren't in it last year, were we? We finished third. I don't think we went there.
Yeah, Matt Patricia was at the Senior Bowl.
He was fired this time last year, weren't he? That'd have been the year before. I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, we weren't there last year, but we picked a few guys from there.
It's supposed to be interesting to see if we pick ones there now we're actually there as well.
Well, I could see a pick going on Howell. I could maybe see a later pick going on one of the running backs. I don't know. I think there's a possibility. Anyhow, certainly. I know. The year before we took Stenberg, didn't we? And we took Jonah from there. Oh, and Iffy was a coach. Oh God, right, okay then. Well, we just spent a lot of our picks on the Senior Bowl. Oh, it's going to be interesting. Right, well, that's it in terms of the offense. So again, a lot of good prospects on show there. Hopefully we've gone through them in a little bit more depth there. So, there's a few guys certainly to take a look at going forward. We'll do the defense next week when we know the full sort of rundown of all the guys who got there. I say the corners and the safeties are still to be decided. That does wrap up about everything I've got for this week, unless there's anything you want to add in on the end, Ryan. I know we were going to talk a little bit about the portal, but I might just put that back to next week.
Yeah, the portal has been quiet. Like I say, between now and that's happened, we've seen the likes of Casey Thompson. He went to Nebraska, which is a big pickup for Scott Frost on a really bad Huskers program. We saw the likes of, we thought Cameron Ward was going to take the Ole Miss offer, but he decided to step into Washington State because his old head coach from Incarnate Wood is now the offensive coordinator, which he didn't know, which makes a natural progression to go there. Jaden DeLaurentiis, the former quarterback for Washington State, stayed in the Pac-12, went to Arizona. Good pickup because Arizona have actually picked up a few good players. Like for a program that's one of the worst in the FBS, they've actually recruited pretty well in the portal. So there's been some big names there. We're still waiting to see Ole Miss if they get a quarterback. Like I say, is it going to be the likes of? I don't know. I really don't know. I've seen so many crystal balls there, but they just haven't landed anyone. They've missed out on all the high prospects. And it's not like Lincoln Riley hasn't tried. I saw him retweet a photo of Caleb Williams edited into an Ole Miss one. Apparently he was texting him. He was texting Bo Nix. He offered him something. He decided no. Like, I don't know why, because it's like they're a very attractive outfit. Like, and they've got a lot of good players there. They've got great coaches. But no one wants to go to Ole Miss, which I find very surprising. They must know something we don't.
Unless they've got something really big lined up, but that's the fascination of the transfer portal. Still plenty of players going in there, which is a weird one this late in. So we'll do a section on next week, and we'll see where a lot of the quarterbacks and that have landed. As I say, also by this time next week, we'll know the entire Senior Bowl squad. So we will give you a big rundown on all the defensive guys as well, because by Jove, we're going to need some in the draft. So that's everything really from us today. In terms of our next shows, so for the main podcast, that will be on Monday, January the 24th. It is the Roar of the Lions end of season awards show, and we are going to a little bit of effort here to glitz it up and make it glamorous. I know Matt's been really hard at work coming up with some of the graphics, the selections. We're going to be putting some polls up on Twitter soon for our fan votes. So if you could keep an eye on our Twitter and vote on those. It will be very much appreciated. Every vote will count. And yeah, it's going to be a fun show. So please do come in and join us for that one. In terms of the college football podcast, we will be back next week on the 26th, the Wednesday. Already said, we're going to go through the defensive side of the Senior Bowl. We will look at the transfer portal in a bit more depth, and we will answer any more questions you have on the draft. I know there's been a couple on Twitter today. I will include them in the show next week. Don't worry, they have not been missed. I'm just on a little bit of a time schedule this week, which I need to keep. So, yeah, we look forward to seeing you then. It just remains for me to go through all our socials. So you can find us on Facebook, our Facebook group, Detroit Lions Fans UK, One Pride Worldwide, and then our page ourselves, Roar of the Lions UK, on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us at ROTL_UK. YouTube, obviously you're with us now. Find us at Roar of the Lions UK, and our website, www.roarofthelionsuk.com. You will see a lot more content coming out there soon. If you've been watching the podcast recently, we're looking for writers. We've had quite a few people put their name forward. We've got some drafts coming in now, and we're about to send out some articles for people to write about. So do keep an eye out for that. You're going to be seeing a lot of new faces on the website there. And I just want to give a quick shout out as well, just for you, the people who listen to us. As if you didn't see it on Twitter the other day, we passed 10,000 audio listens, which is absolutely incredible. We put up a sort of target of 4,000 for the end of this season. So we only hit 1,000 like less than a year ago, and we thought 4,000. We'll aim for it. We'll probably not get there. It's probably too ambitious. Well, you've all taken us to heart. You've all listened to us. You've spread the word, and to get to 10,000 is actually quite humbling. And we've done even more on YouTube as well. So just thank you to every single one of you who does listen to us. We really do appreciate it. It means the world to us, and it just makes all this work we put into it very much worthwhile. Is there anything you want to add, Ryan, before we go this week?
Nope, just looking towards the future. I'm going to do some college awards. Like say, I'm going to write up an article, might put some polls on Twitter, like say game of the year, upset, like say some players, like say we'll do our own thing. So I'm going to be working on that. So everyone just keep looking. Like say I'll be finalizing and putting out a thing on the blog as well. So lots of things to work on as well as we review what's happened and what everyone enjoyed the most or disliked the most.
Okay, well, there you have it. If you've got any awards you want to nominate for the college category, then the Roar of the Lions College Football Awards show, then go to it. Ash just very quickly in the chat has mentioned that it was 2019 the last time we coached the Senior Bowl. We did it with the Bengals. So thanks for that, Ash. Do appreciate that. So yeah, if you've got anything in terms of the college football awards, do so. If you've got anything in terms of players or positions you want scouting out, let us know. I've started my tape review now. I did George Karloff this the other day. I'm moving on to safeties, and then there's a few more coming up. And I know Ryan is doing the same. So if you've got a player you want us to deep dive on, let us know. We'll do it. If you've got a position you want us to deep dive on, let us know. You'll do it. If you've got any questions, let us know, and we will give you an answer in due course. So again, thanks so much to everyone who has listened to us this evening, and we shall see you on Monday for some nice, glitzy, glamorous awards ceremonies. But until then, it remains me to thank Ryan and One Pride.
One Pride.